Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today we're getting into a paradox that's really at the center of a lot of our theology.
That's right, it's a huge question. If God has made his presence so incredibly obvious in the world, why do so many people just not see him?
Yeah, that's the big question for this explainer. The sources we're looking at really tackle this from two angles. First, just how clear is the message God is sending? And second, what's the condition of the person on the receiving end?
Okay, so let's take that first part, God's disclosure. The source material is adamant that this isn't some kind of hidden, secret knowledge meant for just a few people. It's more like a constant, universal broadcast that everyone can see.
I mean, this quote really gets to the heart of it. The argument is that the evidence is so completely overwhelming, you can't help but stumble over it just by looking around. It's not tucked away somewhere, it's right out in the open.
Right, and creation is the #1 way this happens. The source uses a really great analogy here. It calls the universe a mirror. All the incredible, skillful ordering of everything acts as a reflection of the God we can't otherwise physically see.
And we're not talking about some blurry, vague reflection either. The source is very specific. This mirror shows us clear attributes of God. You see his eternal power in the cosmos, his incredible wisdom in its design, his goodness in how it all provides for life, and his divine majesty in just the sheer scale of it all.
But the universe isn't the only mirror the source talks about. The argument also brings it much closer to home, to the evidence inside each of us. And this is really where we start to see the problem. The issue isn't the clarity of the message, it's the condition of the one receiving it.
Host 1. The source calls humanity a microcosm, which literally means a small world. The idea is that every single person is a miniature universe in and of themselves, a concentrated showcase of God's power, goodness, and wisdom. We don't even have to look at the stars. There are, as the source says, enough miracles inside of us to keep our minds busy.
And this is what really makes humanity different. The source points to our soul, our ability to reason, to create art, to plan for the future. These skills aren't just random chance. They're described as clear markers of the divine that set us apart from animals. The design itself points right back to the designer.
So if the evidence is so clear, both outside of us in the universe and inside of us as human beings, we're back to that first question. Why is it so often missed? Well, the source gives a very blunt answer. The problem isn't the revelation. The problem is us. The core issues are our own dullness, our pride, and our ingratitude.
And these internal problems aren't just passive. It's not like they just cause us to miss the message. The argument is that they cause us to actively corrupt it. And that leads to this whole process of how this clear truth gets twisted into a lie.
Yeah, the source lays out a pretty clear, predictable pattern. It starts with that glimpse of God that you just can't avoid. But instead of responding with humility, the reaction is to swell with pride. That pride then twists the truth. And the final step is to create a substitute, a false god, an idol that we make for ourselves.
And the results of all this is just confusion. The source says the mind is like a labyrinth, a twisting maze where if you're left to your own devices, you don't find truth, you just get lost and invent one error after another.
And we see this play out all the time, right? Instead of worshiping the Creator, people will worship nature. Or they invent their own idols that are way more convenient and happen to fit with whatever they already wanted to do.
So when you put all of this together, the very clear revelation from God and the human tendency to corrupt it, it all builds to a pretty firm and final conclusion.
After laying out just how clear God's revelation is and how humanity messes it up, the source delivers its verdict. And it's a blunt one, summed up in just 2 words.
This table really lays out the whole argument. In one column, you have God's action, clear, unambiguous self-disclosure. In the other, you have humanity's reaction, dullness, pride, and the active corruption of that truth. So the consequence becomes unavoidable. Because the revelation is clear and the fault is our own, there's no valid defense for ignorance. We are left, simply, without excuse.
So the argument presented in the source really concludes that knowing God isn't about solving some great intellectual puzzle. It's about acknowledging a reality that's right in front of us. The failure to see isn't a failure of evidence, but a moral and spiritual failure within ourselves. And that leaves us with a really big question to wrestle with. If the main barrier to knowing God isn't a lack of evidence out there, but something broken inside the observer, what does that say about our condition? And what does it really take for us to see clearly?